Sorry, my video got cut off, so sorry, this will be in 2 parts, but I'll finish it for you now. So the grandpa is going to ask her this question. He says, how long did it take you to fly across the country? 5 hours? Well, that trip from Italy took 19 days. I know, because I put a sunflower seed shell in this box every morning. Then everyone was calling, La Statua de la Libertà. I ran up to the deck. There was New York. A boat came up to ours selling food. Our neighbors on the ship bought bananas and gave my family one. I bit into it and spat it out. I didn't know you're supposed to peel it. So from that we can infer that either there were not very many or no bananas in Italy at that time, or maybe the family just didn't have enough money for bananas. I'm also inferring up here that the great-granddaughter and the great-grandfather live very far away if it took her 5 hours probably on a plane to get to him, and that maybe this is their first time meeting. I also love this page because I think this is such a clever way to count if you don't have a way to mark the time using a calendar or a pencil and paper. So now she opens another one. How come this one's empty? I'll tell you why. We got off on Ellis Island. They didn't want to let in anybody sick, especially people with eye diseases. All morning I'd been crying because of the button hook man. When I saw him, I screamed. He grabbed me and used the handle to roll up my eyelid and look underneath. Red, he said. He can't come in. My mother fainted. My oldest sister found a doctor who spoke Italian and told him my eyes were red from crying. She gave me peppermint candies to calm me down. Later, a new doctor checked me using his finger. That one let me pass. I put a candy in the box, but then the next week I ate it. So even though there was nothing in this box, he still remembers why there was nothing and that there used to be something, but he ate it. My father met us. Everyone cried. I smelled his mustache to see if it was really him. We took a boat to New York and then a train somewhere else. The next day we started work in the canneries, all 7 of us, cutting fish all day. Always a man watching to make sure we weren't slowing down. They gave us old, falling apart sheds to live in, as crowded as the ship had been. You didn't have your own room? No, sweetheart. There's the family being reunited. And look what he kept in this matchbox. Tiny fish bones from the cannery. Canning fish, sorting peaches, shelling peas. Then, down to the south, peeling shrimp and opening oyster shells. Wherever there was work, we moved so often I could barely remember where I was or where I'd been. That's why I started saving bits of newspapers, so that someday I could look back and say I was in that exact place on that exact day. I still love newspapers. So, in this one from his matchbox, it says August 23rd, 1916, Brunswick, Georgia. Instead of jewels, my mother and sisters had fish scales on their arms. The strange thing was, when we walked down a street and maybe past a grocery, the same people who bought our cans of sardines wouldn't look at us. Back then, some people didn't want Italians here. Sometimes boys threw rocks, and that's how my tooth got here. Okay, now he's opening his favorite box. That one's my favorite box. My very first baseball game. I didn't understand it, why the men were running, but I was in heaven not to be working and to be sitting by my father. Under the grandstands, I found more matchboxes. Then in a clump of grass, I found a quarter, and that would mean we would get to go again. To me, it seemed like one of the lumps of gold people said we would find. So there's his first baseball game ticket. I think I was 8 when we got an apartment and all rolled cigars at the kitchen table. A few years later, we switched to shelling nuts for restaurants day and night. Then my father got hired at a foundry to Pittsburgh, making railroad parts. My sisters sewed in a factory. My mother told my father I should go to school. She'd seen me staring at signs and circus posters, trying to understand the words. Sometimes I would draw letters with a piece of coal. She wanted me to learn and teach my sisters. Big argument, days and weeks. So in his Matchbox, he has his piece of coal that he would try and practice writing. You should remember that next time you don't want to do your writing. He wants to do it so badly he's using coal and doing it on the sidewalk. So who won the argument? I'll give you a hint. I went to school. It was hard. English seemed as crazy as baseball. Oh, what can we infer from that? Does he speak English? Did he grow up speaking English? Probably not. And since they're from Italy, he probably grew up speaking Italian. I had to sit with the little kids. They made fun of how I talked, but I learned to read and write. What they taught us during the day, I taught my sisters at night. Then I went to a different school where I learned typesetting, which is picking out the lead letters from their compartments. That's how everything was printed before computers. I had good eyes from always looking for little things for my matchboxes. I became a printer. So in his matchbox there, he's got the little typeface letters, and that's him working. Did you stop your Matchbox Diary? In a way, I never did. After 30 years of printing, I opened a bookshop. And books are like newspapers. They show where you've been. Then I bought and sold antiques, old things that people had saved for years, filled with stories. They are other people's diaries. I wish I could write a diary. Do you go to school yet? I go to kindergarten. Lucky girl, you'll be writing before you know it. But till then, I'll bet you're a good collector like me. And this is the last page, and it's just a picture. So I'm going to show it to you. I want you to try and see what she has and where she is. So I see her, this looks like the window of an airplane. So I'm inferring from this picture that maybe she is headed back to her home where she lives after visiting or meeting her great-grandfather. And it looks like she has, this is like a candy. This says really faintly here, candies. So maybe an old chocolate box. And in her hand, she has pilot wings, which is a pin that sometimes pilots give to kids who are riding on a plane. And the start of her collection is one of her great-grandfather's letters from his typesetting collection. So that's it. I wonder if this little girl is going to start her own Matchbox Diary. Okay, good listening. Thanks, friends.